So Jim, we got a crash that happened on this roadway, pretty much straight roadway, but it was a dark nighttime crash.
Okay.
And somebody was...
Was it a fatal?
It was a fatal. Somebody was killed in this. It was a vehicle versus pedestrian. So,
Cool.
Hey, morning guys, how are you?
morning, Mark.
Hey, man, what are you guys working on today?
I'll show you right here.
Today we've got a fairly straight road. It's nighttime. It's dark. We have
Can we shut the lights off?
we have a vehicle. If we shut the lights off, we can show you what the road looked like.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a vehicle that's traveling in the curb lane, northbound.
Okay.
And this is a 45-mile-an-hour speed zone here. Her speed at this point is unknown, but we know that she's driving northbound in the curb lane. Well, in front of her, in the dark, and there's no street lights to illuminate this street, in front of her in the dark is a elderly man in a walker with the four-wheel walker.
Okay.
And he's walking right down the middle of the lane, in the lane, northbound in the lane.
45 zone?
45 zone.
I got that right.
So, right, 45, so we remember. What we need to do is we know the gist, we have several questions. We have unit 2, we know is in the curb lane, but we have to answer several questions first.
Okay.
2's in the roadway northbound, so I'm gonna put an arrow indicating which way it's traveling. This triangle at the front does not indicate direction, it just indicates the front of the car.
I feel like
Because some,
directed at me.
yeah, it is directly at you because, directly directed at you.
So anyway,
So, as she is traveling north, she's actually accelerating from an intersection that would be down here.
Okay.
So we know she stopped and she starts traveling forward. So I don't believe she's up to speed yet, but we need to figure that out. So we have one question is we got to figure out how fast she's going. But right here we have, and I'm going to do it like this. This is a pedestrian in the roadway,
okay.
just looking down on him, with a walker.
Okay.
Just like, I described, not the walker with the tennis balls on the bottom, but the walker with the
wheels.
Like the one I bought to recreate this crash.
Okay.
As she's traveling, and this is her statement, she is accelerating from the light. She has issues shifting her car from second to third gear.
Okay.
And so she looks down at her gear shift,
Go ahead.
and when she looks up, she says he's just right there, he's in front of her.
Okay.
Well,
How old is the car?
the car, it's an older early 2000s.
Will it have the black box?
It does not have a black box. So this one has got to be recreated through other means
Okay.
to figure out speeds. But that's one of our questions, is how fast Unit 2 is going. First of all, why is this guy in the road? Now, he can't answer us.
Why?
And it should be noted, and this is actually really important, and I'm going to use orange to indicate this. I'm going to use green to indicate this.
Okay.
Is on this side of the road, this is all desert landscape.
It's probably
Okay.
not green then. but
There's
okay.
there's green bushes.
Okay.
See, and on this side, I'm going to use green still just to
It's
illustrate
desert,
this.
right?
That's desert.
Yeah.
But I'm going to use green, but this is a sidewalk. So there's a sidewalk that runs right along the side of this road for foot traffic. Why he is over here, I don't know. Back, he's moving in the same direction. He's walking with his back to traffic. And again, there's no lights to illuminate this street, so it's dark. So and if you're traveling, let's just say you're traveling 45 miles an hour, your headlights only shine out so far. It averages about 200 feet. So if you're traveling 45 miles an hour, and it sounds far, but at the edge of it, once something enters your headlights, and that's your first sign of what it is, you still have to go through the process of recognizing what it is.
Sure.
Before you can start to react. There's a perception and reaction time.
Right.
So you got to perceive what it is. Now you're going to hammer the brake or steer the wheel.
Perception and reaction?
PRT is usually about 1.6 seconds for the average person. Okay?
Yeah, it was dark at the time of the accident.
And so now being dark, we add
Remember what
time to
time
that.
it was?
6 o'clock-ish.
6, the sun had been down for 30,
Okay.
45 minutes. But now that's in normal daylight conditions.
Sure.
Nighttime conditions, we can add to it. So her PRT may be over 2 seconds.
Okay.
At 45 miles per hour, consistently, let's say we don't know if she is yet, but you're traveling 45 miles per hour, the subject gets into your headlights at 200 feet. By the time you can perceive, react, and then go through the process of your vehicle actually grabbing the roadway, stopping the car, or swerving out of the way, it's too late. You've already driven over somebody.
Okay.
And that's common at 45 miles
We can
an
do
hour.
that math pretty easy, right?
You can do that math very easy. He was struck here on this side. He rode up onto the hood and into the windshield. And he remained in the windshield because at this point, when she hit him, she hits her brakes. And now we have skid mark from point of impact or just after it that runs along this road, just like this. And then
That's in the police report there?
it's in the police report and it's in the photos. And then at the end of this, we're going to call this a stop.
Okay.
He's in the roadway here.
The end of the vehicle movement.
At the end of the vehicle movement.
So he's on the windshield, he rode the windshield.
Yes.
And when she finally came to stop.
Once she hammered
came
the
off.
brakes, the car does this. It dips forward. The front dips. Then he comes off the vehicle and onto the asphalt. There you go. Perfect. Now, she takes her car though from here, and at this point I don't know how it was done yet. I think there was room to come through here, but she pulls up another so many feet, stops her car here, and puts her flashers on and is in panic mode.
Sure, she just ran over a guy.
Okay, they call this a controlled stop. So in accident reconstruction, we cannot do our reverse engineering from a controlled stop because she made that movement. The car didn't do it. Physics didn't do that. She did it. So,
I got a terrible question.
Yes.
Did she go around him?
well, I think he was off more this way. Let's move it.
It's not to scale.
It's not to scale.
Right, but
But
she
there was
didn't
room.
run
There was
over him
no.
again.
She did not run over
went
him.
around him.
So she. I think she went this way. I think he came off in front. And she had room to go to the side. So she stopped there. So the police get there and they go, what happened? We can't figure out her speed because she stopped the car on her own. She went from the skid marks and went to here.
What do you mean they can't do that?
That's what they said.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you how we can.
Okay.
Okay, we know this distance, right? But we can't do a typical, what's called a Searle. John Searle is the person that
What is the
developed.
distance?
What's that?
What was the distance?
I can't remember. I want to say this is like 119 feet or something like that. And that's, I'd have to go back to the report to refer to that. But John Searle developed a method called the pedestrian throw calculation, which can determine a pedestrian is projected off the front of the car. Let's say he rolls and tumbles and comes to a stop here, and we know this distance. We can determine the speed of the vehicle.
So he's done all the data on what happens when a car hits a body
Yes.
and all the different conditions that can happen at different speeds.
And yes, and the coefficient of the body tumbling and
or
the
staying
body-
on the car like this guy.
Well, not when they ride the car because we don't know the distance they rode the car.
Okay.
We can pretty much assume, but we don't like to assume in our work. We can assume he was on the car from here to here. So his movement, she could have gone 800 feet
Sure.
and then brake and then he come off. That doesn't mean she's doing 200 miles an hour. It just means he rode the car for a period of time. In a projection where a pedestrian's hit and projected or vault, the fender vault's what they call it, comes up over here and they hit the ground and they tumble and they roll to a stop, we can determine speeds from that.
Okay.
In this one, because he rode the windshield this distance and she controlled her vehicle, the police say we cannot determine her speed. She says I was shifting from second to third gear when I looked up.
What kind of car was it?
It was an older model Mustang. It was an older
We're
Mustang.
talking 20 to 30 to 30 to 40 at the most.
Okay, so we're going to be in that range if this is a true statement.
If.
But we need to do some calculations to verify this first. Now, remember I said he had a walker? Mm-hmm. Well, the police indicate in their report the walker is located 300 plus feet. I'm just going to give it plus feet over here off in bushes. Let's just say here it is. If I get that same walker, which I did, and I weigh that walker, and then I test that walker for coefficient of drag on the ground, for on its side, on its wheels. I do all these tests, and I can determine at what speed it will take a vehicle to punt that walker 300 feet. So what we want to do is we want to be able to figure out by weighing it and doing the coefficient just the same way John Searle did the pedestrian test. We can do that with a walker. We can do it with bicyclists all the time, where a lot of times a person riding a bike will get hit from behind. They'll end up in the windshield, but the bike will get punted. So we'll calculate the distance of the bike and with the known weight, and we can determine a speed.
That makes sense.
So I do, and I come up with a speed of, from this distance with this walker at its weight, 38 miles per hour.
Still below the speed limit though.
It's below the speed limit, and it's consistent with her saying I was stopped at this light, I was accelerating, I was shifting from second to third gear. Mm-hmm. I looked down, I looked up, he was there. All this is consistent in this stoplight down here. So now we can start to put the puzzle together going, wait a second, she's not doing anything excessive.
Except running over a dude in the road.
Well, why is he in the road? Now, part of this that it says in the report, there was a car in front of her. And detective says, how far in front of you was this car as you're traveling? That was about 30 feet. Then the officer says, well, what happened to that car? She says, I don't know. Like I said, I looked down and I looked up and all of a sudden this pedestrian with a walker is in front of me and I can't do anything. So the next morning, the detectives get a call from a guy who says, I was driving up that road in the curb lane about 6 p.m., same time as the wreck. All of a sudden there was a guy in a walker, old guy and he described the walker, was walking in the middle of the curb lane. I swerved last minute to avoid hitting him, but I had to go on to his next stop. I don't know if he was an Uber driver or what he was, but he said he was going to come back. He says, but when he came back by, the road was closed and they had police tape and police all over the place. He said, so he assumed that guy got hit, which is why he called it the next morning. Now, when Jim and I start reviewing the photographs here, this is interesting. We see this, and I'm just going to recreate. I'm going to blow up this area right here. So we have the curb, and we have the lane, right? We have point of impact, but right here we have her skid marks, and we can see those clearly. One's lighter than the other and kind of fades. But we have her skid marks, but crossing through her skid marks,
here's another set.
We see this skid mark, bright as day, going right through it. So what that tells me is, that's this guy.
He did swerve around.
And he did swerve as she's looking down, and when she looked up, he swerves out of the way. He's like, oh, phew, I missed that person. Or she just goes right into him. He doesn't indicate he saw anything in his rearview mirror. He just says he continued going. He was going to come back and report a person in the road. By the time we got out there, we couldn't identify the skid marks. They dissipated, which they do over time. Mm-hmm. But we have great photographs of the skid marks taken by the detectives at the scene. So we can deduce 38-ish miles an hour based on second to third gear, coming from a stopped position, just short of this, just shy of this, and the 38 mile an hour calculation for the 300-foot walker.
So is she being charged with a crime now?
She's being charged with a crime.
Running down a
She's being charged with manslaughter. I'm going to weigh the midline walker.
What are you weighing and why?
I'm weighing the walker because the fatal pedestrian that was walking with this walker, identical walker, was hit from behind, and the walker was launched 319 feet.
300 feet.
So in order for me to get a speed for the car, because the pedestrian rode up onto the car and into the windshield until the car came to a stop, the only thing we can measure is the walker. So I got to figure out what the weight of the walker is, and then the coefficient of the asphalt or ground, and also the dirt when we get there in Bullhead City. So I can do that if I know the weight of the walker, and I take it out, and I'll do it on its wheels and I'll do it on the side. And once I start to pull, it gives me a pull weight. And once it starts to move, I document that weight, and then I divide that weight by the weight of the walker, and it'll give me a coefficient. So I'll do the wheels and then I'll do the side. But we'll do that out in the parking lot. But right now,
wheels and then the side.
yeah, because if it rolled, it's going to have less coefficient than if it was on the side.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So
Okay.
zeroed.
Let's get this thing weighted.
So we're going to go right in the middle. So it doesn't touch anything but that for me.
15.97.
So we'll call it 16 pounds because it's tapped my leg a little bit.
Yeah, let's stop at 15.97.
Okay, there it is, 15.97. So we'll call that 16-pound walker. But to explain a coefficient, what that means is the drag factor.
Okay.
So for example, a car sliding on ice is going to slide further at 20 miles an hour than a car sliding on asphalt at 20 miles an hour.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So
Less drag.
Less drag, exactly. So what we need to find out is, because this is not a car and it's not a person, there's data out there to tell us what a person's drag factor is that we're supposed to use, whether it's on grass, dirt, or asphalt. or pavement. There's no data for a walker because this is very unique. This case is unique with the walker. So we're gonna create our own data
Okay.
by actually measuring this. And once we measure this, we can plug that data into formulas and that'll give us speeds. But if the car's doing 50, it's going to accelerate the pedestrian to 50 like that. It's going to accelerate this to 50 like that. So that's what we need to figure out. Again, 0.62 pounds of force to start moving on its wheels.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I'm zeroed out. 7.9.
7.9 pounds?
7.91 to be exact.
Now this is dark as hell out here. So this is the point of impact?
Yeah, right in this area.
I can barely see you.
Okay. Car's coming, so I'm going quick.
No, get out now. Get out now. So you're just going to radar typical traffic as it comes by?
Yeah, I'm going to get average speed. So I want to figure out what is the average speed of this roadway. 51.15 miles per hour is the average speed at this time of day, the day after Thanksgiving, on this roadway here, which is in line with the calculations I conducted with the walker based on the distance, coefficient, the weight that the walker went, because pedestrian rode the car. We can't use that to calculate. I have it at 319 feet. I believe I was just reading it was 305 feet to the north, and then to the east is going to be another distance. So we had a person crossing that we could barely see, but
now we're on the path.
now we're we're going down the path, and this is pitch black. I can't see, and I have super bright halogen bulbs on, and they were struck right around here is where he was struck, and you can see, you can't see anything in front of you, and my lights are much brighter than a 2002 Mustangs.
Okay. So we're going in the path.
In the same lane, and we just passed the point of impact, but you see there's no overhead street lights here to illuminate the street. There's no sidewalk on the right side.